That Don't Sound Right is a podcast about talking the way we did before the internet, when you could not prove anyone right or wrong.
All the expertise was contained in the people involved with the conversation. I'm Peter.
I'm Cecil, and I hope you enjoy our conversations. And as you listen, if you find yourself silently saying, that don't sound right, send us a comment. You're one of us.
Just did it once.
They just did it once.
I mean, it was just a one-day thing. I mean,
Right.
where you and I are talking about maybe doing it once a year, where
Right.
the canoe going down to the Yadkin River starting from downtown Winston.
Right.
Welcome back to another episode of That Don't Sound Right, podcast about talking. We're your co-hosts, Peter Bielman.
And I'm Cecil.
Hey, we're just trying to have a conversation here without Googling it or fact-checking it or using AltaVista. You still use AltaVista?
I don't use
you don't
AltaVista. Yeah.
But, all that kind of stuff when you're in the middle of a conversation just kind of kills it.
Yep. And I've heard people talk about that, just where nowadays, you get started talking about something and somebody pulls their phone out and checks the facts, and then there's nothing else to talk about because now you know the answer.
So it's simple. We're just about talking, and this time we're talking about stumps.
Stump pulling.
Stump pulling.
Yeah.
So in case you're new to the podcast, oftentimes Cecil and I will bring up this topic, and the other guy won't know exactly what we're about to talk about.
Right.
And usually it's about something that really don't sound right.
Right.
Something I would be very tempted to fact check or Google it. So here we go. What's this deal about pulling stumps?
Pulling stumps. So my grandfather, C.A., and some of his friends had a club.
So C.A., is this the Beast of Bladenboro?
Well, he played a role in that because his friend, so it was my other grandfathers who you're thinking about, the one that shot the Beast of Bladenboro.
Right, so if you're wondering what we're talking about, episode 54,
go back and listen.
We talk about the Beast of Bladenboro.
So this is my grandfather is C.A.
Okay.
Cecil Alexander,
all
C.A.
Right.
And so he and some of it, so this is a small town.
Bladenboro.
Yes. So he and some of his friends formed a club called the Stump Pullers Club.
Okay.
The BD Stump Pullers Club.
All right.
And they actually had stationery made that had BD Stump Pullers Club. I'll go find one of the. I have some of the cards downstairs.
You don't have to put that up on the site.
Put it up on the website.
Right.
They had business cards made. Back before business cards were a thing, it said Stump Pullers Club, had their names, and they each had the division they were over. And my grandfather was over he worked in a drugstore, so he was over the drug division of BD.
Oh, so
Stump Pullers Club.
So the BD Stumple has a kind of a vast organization. Of directors and a whole layer of middle management. Okay.
As far as I can tell, there was only 3 of them.
Well,
that were in the club.
They're wearing multiple hats in the organization.
Wearing multiple hats in the organization. So they had the stationery made, they had the cards made, they had pins made that you would wear on your hat. It said Stump Pullers Club, and the motto was BD Stump Pullers Club, we pull together.
Were you alive at this time, or is this before your time?
It was before my time.
Okay.
I've only heard stories of this.
How old was CA at the time, would you say?
I don't know. That's a good question. I couldn't even venture a guess how old he was at this point. So,
but it was before your time.
Before my time. Yeah, I've only heard stories and seen, and I have some of the merch.
Have your parents told stories?
No, I've only heard the stories just kind of secondhand over the years.
From who?
From him. Well, not secondhand, firsthand from him.
Okay.
He's told stories, and then I've heard other people in the drugstore tell stories.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. So this is one of the stories, and there's a picture of this too. So the Stump Pullers Club one day had a stump, a tree stump, the whole thing, like the root ball and everything. They had it out in the middle of town, in front of the drugstore.
So this is a stump they've already pulled out of the ground.
Yep.
Okay.
Big stump.
So was this a hobby of theirs where they would just go around pulling stumps?
No, they wouldn't pull any stumps.
Okay. All right.
So this doesn't sound right already.
Yeah, this don't sound right, but I'll let you keep rocking on this story. Go.
So I've had to think about this for years before I finally figured it out. So anyways, there was a big stump that was now in the center of town where the drugstore was.
Just loose.
just loose.
On the road or like
On the sidewalk.
On the sidewalk.
Right. So when the sidewalk came around the corner there, it kind of widens out
Yeah.
for the turn, and so there's a little extra space right in front of it, and the stump sat right there in the center of town on the sidewalk.
Okay.
And then a member of the Stump Pullers Club would stand guard next to the stump.
Yeah, this story's getting weird, but go ahead.
Yep. So so this went on for the whole day. The stump was there in the middle of the town that they've carried in. They have guarded the stump all day.
So they've taken turns?
Yes.
Was there someone in charge of security?
Yeah. Well, no. They all three would guard the stump.
Okay.
But
is this the drugstore that CA worked at?
Right. Yep. So they guarded the stump all day. No questions about the stump were answered.
Were answered or asked?
There was a lot asked.
Okay.
But no answer.
So is this kind of like a Buckingham Palace kind of guard where you're just standing at attention and looking?
That's how I have it in my mind. I don't have an actual picture of how it looked.
Are they wearing any
guard.
kind of identification that says they're guarding the stump or
no.
that they're part of the stump pulling club?
I think there's nothing being said about it. So there's a stump in the middle. Now imagine a little town, a sleepy little town, all of a sudden somebody has a stump in the middle of town, and people are guarding, but nobody's answering questions about why the stump is there and why it's being guarded.
I believe I'd send the small town newspaper reporter that direction.
Right. Somebody would take a picture of it, right? So now it gets toward evening, and the Stump Pullers Club march into town, pick the stump up,
All three of them.
the three of them, pick the stump up, carry the stump out of town, down a road, and bury it
In the ground.
in the ground. I think
So
they
who-
actually buried it in a pile of sawdust.
So who are the two other guys? Do we have we identified them?
I do know who they were. They were just friends there in town.
Just friends.
Yeah.
What were their occupations?
I think one ran the movie theater, and I forget what the other one did.
All right.
Yep. But they
these-
were all gainfully employed.
Yeah, but these are all buddies.
Buddies and prominent members of the town.
Prominent.
Yeah,
So,
all of them were prominent.
so
members of
when
the
people are walking on the street, they see this prominent member of town guarding a stump,
Right.
answering no questions.
Right. And then at sundown,
Did
they
these
carry
three
the
guys-
stump out.
Did these three guys grow up in Bladenboro?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, they're all locals.
So they grew up together.
all grew up together, all buddies. Carry the stump out of town, bury it in the pile of sawdust.
Can we identify the make and model of this stump?
No, I don't know what the stump
We don't
was.
know if it's an oak
Yeah,
or...
and I don't think it matters because now I've pondered this for years because nobody told me, ever told me what happened. But
Okay, so
I think I know what it is.
Where did they bury it? I don't understand. A pile of sawdust.
Yeah, so I think they carried it out like to where the sawmill was in
Okay.
town and buried it out there, probably in a pile of sawdust.
Okay.
So, end of story. So let's stop there for a minute. Let's do the words of wisdom. You've got words of wisdom.
So yeah, this is from Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. It sounds like the Stump Pullers Club didn't really have a road.
Yeah.
Oh, they were going places. It didn't matter where they were going.
It's like
they were
the,
just going there. And actually, in fairness, that's not really an accurate quote.
Yeah.
It's kind of the summarization of the conversation between Alice and the cat, where Alice asks, "Would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here?" And the cat says, "Well, that depends a good deal on where you want to get to." Alice says, "I don't much care where." And the cat says, "Then it doesn't matter which way you go."
It's like you've seen the "All who wander aren't lost"
Yeah,
shirt.
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So it's the journey. It's not the destination. It's the journey.
So I'm hoping to get to the destination.
The destination of the story. So after pondering this for years and years and years and years, because I think I even asked questions about it growing up.
When did you first hear the story? How old were you? Were you like
I
a
was
teenager?
little, yeah, like when I was a little or teenager and that kind of things. And I would ask about it from time to time because he always had that. Even when I was alive, he had that button on his hat that said BD Stump Pullers Club, we pull together. And so I remember asking questions about it, but not getting a lot of answers.
So tell me maybe the listeners and I would benefit from hearing the first time you heard this story and why was it told?
I think I asked because he always wore a hat. He had that button on. I asked him what was the Stump Pullers Club, and they probably told the story at that point. about the stump.
Is this the only story about the Stump Pullers Club?
This is the only story about the Stump Pullers Club that I know.
This is getting really mysterious.
Yeah. So it took me all these years to think, and I finally figured out what happened. So do you have any ideas of what just happened? You can ask me any question. I'll answer whatever I can answer about the story.
Well, how did the stump get there?
They brought it.
Someone brought it.
I don't think anybody saw them bring it, though. I think it was just there in the morning when everybody was getting up.
So the Stump Pullers Club brought it to the...
Yep. They had it brought there and set in the middle of town.
Do you think they actually pulled the stump out? Where did they get the stump?
I don't know. Somewhere, probably the salt mill.
This sounds like it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I don't think that was relevant to the story of what happened or why they did it. But so they got a stump from somewhere,
All right.
and they get it there before anybody kind of gets up in the morning.
So you have
there.
you have 3 young adults that have formed this club,
Right.
where they are pulling together.
We pull together.
We pull together.
Yeah.
Sounds like they're very, very close friends.
Yep.
And as some kind of task, maybe it's a prank on somebody, they pull this stump and they put it in front of CA's drugstore, essentially,
Right.
where he's working that day,
Right.
and the other 2 guys are taking turns guarding it.
Yeah, and I don't know if they were all off that day or they just took. I don't know how that worked out. Like I don't
Because
know
why
that
in
detailed
front of
story.
why in front of the drugstore? Why not in front of
because that was
the
middle-
Pump and Munch?
It's because the drugstore was in the middle of the town.
Okay.
The
all right.
drugstore was dead center town.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So everybody had to go buy it. If you did anything that day in town, you would have had to go buy the stump.
Did any of these guys run for office?
My grandfather was a councilman, yeah, and I think one of them was the mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this was they were in these positions after.
During, after,
The stump
before,
incident.
yeah. Like I'm saying, all these guys were well respected
All right.
members of the of Bladen society.
Right. And is this before the Beast of Bladenboro?
Probably be after.
Okay, so
I'd say.
they've got some notoriety already.
Yeah, right.
They've got nothing to prove.
Right.
All
So
right.
here's what I think it was.
Go ahead, because none of this sounds right.
Yeah. Here's why I think they did it. I think they did it because here we are, 40 years later, still talking
Oh,
about it.
come on, man.
I
You
think
that's just to do some mysterious thing.
I think that's why they did it. I think they did it because people still talk about that.
Do they?
today.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
that's a good question. Do people still talk about
People
that flavor?
still can talk about it. I mean, now of course now my grandfather's been dead for 30 years. So I mean, we're getting out there. There's not
Yeah.
many people that still remember this.
Do you know any of the descendants of the other 2 guys?
I do, but I've never talked to them about it.
Why not, Cecil?
It's just because I've never run across them. I know who they
you need to
are.
be curious about this.
I do. I know who they are, but I've never seen them.
Okay,
Like I've
okay.
seen other people
All
in
right,
town
all
and
right.
other kids, but I've just never. Our paths never crossed.
Okay.
But I know who they are. I know who they
You
are.
don't
Yeah.
know them. Okay.
Right. I just don't know them personally. Yeah. I think the reason they did it is because here we are
Just to create
in
lore.
2022 still talking about that stump that sat on that sidewalk.
Is that the reason why we're doing this podcast?
That's the reason this was the climax
it.
of the whole podcast thing was just for me to tell this story.
And we're closing the podcast down now.
That's right. Yeah, that's it.
No, we're not. We're not
We're not.
closing it down.
But what else would it be?
Well, I have no idea. Unless it was,
I think it was a small town, and they did something that had people talking for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then months, and then slowly, like Lord of the Rings, it went from it moved into a myth and lore and legend, and here we are still telling the story.
Do we need to create some Stump Puller swag on our merchandise
Yeah,
site?
that would be. Yeah, I'll show you this. I can show you the original.
Let's
swag.
recreate it.
I think I have. I know I've got a business card and a button, but I'll say I may still have a piece of stationery somewhere.
I think we need to recreate that into a couple pieces of swag to put on the
Stump
on the
Puller
merchant
stuff?
site. Yeah.
So here's what I think needs to be created.
Because people will say, "What's this all about?" Well, you go listen to
Right.
episode 64.
Yeah.
We're in here.
So here's what I also think needs to be created there. I think there needs to be people like that again that will do something like that for the. It's almost like the card trick from 2 episodes ago, where somebody did the practical joke on me with the
Oh,
cards
yeah.
and then just never
Yes,
said anything
right.
about it.
You're still talking about
You're
it.
still talking about it. There's a beauty to that,
Right.
to just doing something like that and not offering any explanation
The
for
mystery-
it.
the
right.
mystery of
And
it
then
all.
it'd be harder to do now because we live in a fairly large town.
Right. You need to be in a small town.
I think you'd need to be in a smaller town. But I think
'Cause-
we could probably pull it off here.
Well, the thing about what they had going for it is everyone knew them.
Right.
Right. Everyone knew them.
Yep.
So when they saw those three guys were walking around with the stump,
Yep.
or at least standing around the stump,
Yep. And people ask
a lot
questions.
of people recognized.
What are you guys
that.
doing?
You and I could walk down the street down 4th Street
Yeah.
with a canoe,
Right. Nobody's going to care.
unless we did it once a year.
We are. That's what I'm saying is that we've got to
Like
come up with something.
if we did it, like if someone asked, we said we're heading to the Yadkin River,
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
we're gonna go paddle Silas Creek,
Right. Right.
and we're starting here.
Today's the day for the race.
Today is the day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all we say is today's the day and just keep walking
That's right.
and not answering other questions.
Wow, you want to try this?
I do want to try this. I think there's a need in the world today for this type of shenanigans. And I think this was 100% shenanigans.
Well, you know what we might be embarking on right now, Cecil, is
So-
we are restarting the Stump Pullers Club,
Right.
but it's going to be a worldwide, global movement because of the people listening around the world.
Yeah, you just and people kind of do this now, like with the signs. They'll paint the signs that say "believe" or "hope" and stick them.
Yes.
And that's just this is a similar thing. And there's been other. The best one I saw was there's a glass blower, and this is up like in New England somewhere, and he will blow these glass ornaments and hide them in the woods up there.
Oh, wow.
And so, like, people are always kind of have their eyes out for them. And so he'll put out like 100 a year, and they're stamped and numbered and
No
whatever.
kidding.
Yeah, and they're like the buoys, like the glass ball buoys that go in a fishing net. Have you ever seen those?
No, not
so
glass
it's like
ones.
yeah, so it's like a recreation of that
Okay.
in glass, and he scatters them around secretly, and people find them.
Oh.
And yeah, it's really
Interesting.
cool. That's what I'm saying. I just think there needs to be more things like that.
Well, I really think this podcast is going to be that for us. We don't let me
Right.
go carrying a canoe around downtown Winston-Salem. In 20 years, our kids will say, "Hey, remember when our dad
Dad?
made that podcast?"
They'll dig around and see if they can find some archived recording of it.
I mean, it's going to be out there forever,
Yeah,
right? That's
Yeah,
the thing
potentially,
about the
yeah.
internet.
Yeah.
It's going to be out there forever.
yeah, yeah. You'll probably always be able to find it. It's interesting now. Like if you search for our podcast, the places it kind of pops up.
Oh yeah, like what?
Well, just like you see it you see it embedded in the players that we use, but
Right,
then
right.
like it's on YouTube now. So if you search for it, like the YouTube thing will pop up too. It's
Okay.
just interesting
Yeah,
how
it is.
how permanent it becomes
Yeah.
in the internet.
Yeah, and so those that are listening, that's why we ask you to do a review or give it a rating, because it just puts one little mark out there for people to find us.
So if you've had a similar experience like the Stump Pullers Club or
I'd like
similar
to hear
story, I'd love to hear.
I'd like to hear that too. Or if you want to start one.
Yeah, or
Let
if
us
you do
know.
one and let us know.
And I mean, I'm serious about starting maybe make a hat. Let's make a hat. We could even do a T-shirt.
Yeah, I'll show you the. I'll get the stuff out. We'll put it on Instagram.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be pretty funny.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Because we've got plenty of people. We have
Tens,
dozens of people that
dozens.
probably live in small towns that could pull this off and be more effective than
Yeah.
us here in Winston.
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff like you could do like that. That's just it's harmless, but it's funny.
Well, I still think it'd be very interesting for you to follow up with the descendants of the other two guys and see what they know.
Yeah, I would love to hear the stories that they got told and what they have.
Because the amazing thing, they just did it once.
They just did it once.
I mean, it was just a one-day thing. I mean,
Right.
where you and I are talking about maybe doing it once a year, with
Right.
the canoe going down to the Yadkin River, starting
Yeah.
from downtown Winston.
Right,
which
right.
It's a long way. That's a long way.
Yeah, I mean, you only had to do it once, and here we are, still talking about it.
Hey, before we close, we want to thank everyone for listening. Hey, and if this is your first time and you enjoyed the conversation, would you consider hitting the subscribe button or that little check mark in the Apple Podcast, upper right-hand corner? Just do that little check mark. You'll subscribe to it, and
We can tell when you do it because all of a sudden our listenership jumps by 100.
Well, you know, people ask me all the time, do you know who listens? And the answer is no, we don't know who listens. Right. Also, if you consider rating us and even giving us a review, it's also December. Right. We have a merchandise site. We have those cool pint glasses that say, that don't sound right. And I insist, the more you drink out of them, the more people will say, that don't sound right to you.
Yeah, buy merchandise for your Christmas gifts. For all your loved ones, buy That Don't Sound Right merchandise. All right, That Don't Sound Right is a production of TDSR Podcast in conjunction with Camel City Studios. I am Cecil, your sound engineer. Web design is by Peter. Thank you, Peter, for doing all that. That's a lot of work. Our graphic designer is Emily Billman. The first person who purchased the shirt is Giorgio. Our brand ambassador, and a great brand ambassador he is, because he truly knows the show, is Brent. And as always, listener number one is Scott. So, until next Saturday night, keep talking.
And stay curious.